I think we've got paint on the walls now, and hopefully within the next week or two we'll be back in there, full time and everything. The trucks are back in, and we're operating at it, the best we can with what we got to work with. Another concern of mine is the representation of the volunteers within things that goes on in the county as far as the policies, procedures. We're working on trying to revitalize the CCEO, and we got some other chiefs here, department representation here tonight, can speak a little further on it than I can. We try to get along real good with the county. We think we do. We work together. We work together with these other departments, and we think a whole lot of them because they back us up and we back them up. That's why we work so good together. So, if they got a problem, then we want to try to work forward and try to solve some of the issues that they have. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Terry. And Mr. Terry, you can thank Mr. Williams because it was his excellent presentation that got the funding for Sparta.
Mr. Thomas?
Well, let's let everybody else talk. I was just kidding. I should have done that.
Mr. Chairman, Scott Mosier, Bowling Green District.
Mr. Mosier?
Mark Garnett, of course. We would like to express our extreme gratitude to all the fire and rescue people that assisted us with the Robert Woods Jr. search. It was a tremendous effort on everybody's part, including all the citizens of Caroline that came out and assisted us during the search in the Hanover area. From Sunday night on until he was located, we actually conducted searches on the Caroline side as well. So it was a tremendous effort, and it really gives you a whole new look on humanity and how everybody pulled together, and it was a good feeling for everybody to find the boy safe and alive, and our thoughts and prayers go out to the family.
Thank you, Major Mosier,
right.
and forgive me for not acknowledging you first on that because you did a great job, and I'm sure the family's very appreciative, and the entire county is extremely proud.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. All right. And I won't make any more comments for public comments. Is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding any matter?
Afternoon. Bo Norton, District Chief, Ladysmith Fire, Madison District. Had a couple things I'm here representing tonight. The CCEUO. We would like to ask the board if there's possible for one of the volunteer chiefs, when the organization or group is put together for rehiring of a new county chief, if one of the district chiefs could be on that board. We think that there's a lot of experience in this county, and we'd like to be representative for the volunteers or the volunteer chiefs. Not to say who to hire or when to hire, just we'd like to set in on that process just to give some questions and answers if it's possible. Second thing, the CCEUO would like to the document on the emergency service ordinance. Once the new chief is hired, the volunteer district chiefs would like to either meet with the chief or who you designate as a person to clarify some of the things so we'll know where we stand, or maybe could look at some of the things in there that we feel that's maybe not in good standings or good position for the volunteers. We'd like for y'all to please give us a chance to talk to someone. I'm not sure if there was a volunteer chief or that was in on when this ordinance was done. But we would like a chance to talk to you or be there. And we appreciate all the work you've done and the service you've done of us. Why, at Ladysmith. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Norton. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Linda Keith. This time I'm Bowling Green. Thank you very much.
2.
Well, hey, you made that decision, not me.
I didn't, but okay.
I am speaking on the behalf of the schools, and once again, I think you're all well aware of the fact that the budget is not, or the funding for the school as projected did not come in for where they expected it to be for the new school. And I would like to recommend that you do fully fund the school. It is important that we start yay high and work our way up. And if we want this community to build on anything, we need to start building on the children. And, you know, you keep talking about this YMCA stuff, and YMCA is a great organization if they want to be here. And if they really wanted to be here, they would find a way to get here. We shouldn't have to pay for it ourselves. It shouldn't come out of proffers. If they want to be here, let them be here. If they don't, find somebody else who wants to be here. They're going to find a way to get here and let them in. But why do we have to pay for it and then pay for the dues or the membership fees that go along with it? When that money that you're setting aside for a YMCA and now talking about something about roads in order to move forward on the YMCA, you're taking away from our children. And you keep borrowing money that these little ones are going to have to pay for, and if they don't have the education to pay for that stuff, it's just going to keep going downhill. If you don't understand, it's just, you got to wrap your minds around it. It starts here. It doesn't start here. It doesn't start with you. It starts with the little guys. We take them to school every day, and they're brought there to learn how to become adults. And if you're not going to fully fund this school, how are these children supposed to be able to get a job and pay the debt that you're going to create on them to begin with? And this isn't even the icing on the cake. Big government has done it to them already. Why do you have to do it to them? Just, you know, the YMCA can wait. Ladysmith can wait. These kids can't wait. They're required to be in school. So why don't you make it a nice place for them? We have wonderful teachers. We have wonderful staff. Why don't you use the resources that you have and make it a good place? Make it the best that it can be so that they can be the best that they can be. I'm a mother of 3, and I do my damnedest to make sure my kids go where they need to go, and they're going to make it where they need to be. But there are thousands of people out there who can't do it for their kids. Don't make those kids end up being at the bottom of the chain because you have decided to do this to them. And remember, guys, this is an election year. You want to do the right thing? Look in your hearts to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, as much as you may agree or disagree, would you please refrain from applause? Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Sherry Marshall. I'm in the Reedy Church District. I'm here representing the Bowling Green Elementary PTA. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you for this opportunity to speak. We'd like to talk to you about the school funding. We strongly believe you need to find the funding to support the new elementary school. Notice I have used the word new. It's not a new school. It's just a renovation in addition to an existing school. That's all we're asking for. These students represent our future and the county's future. Each of you want to increase business, jobs, homes, and we all know a vital piece of this plan is to have schools and buildings that demonstrate the great education that the teachers and administrators are providing within those walls. The students deserve a great educational environment to thrive and grow and be the future business leaders, board members, homeowners, and community members of this county if we can keep them here. If we can't offer them what they need, they may not stay. Funding was found to build the new Lewis and Clark Elementary, to renovate Madison Elementary, and even some to renovate Bowling Green Primary, but nothing was done to Bowling Green Elementary because we were going to get a new school. Now is the time for us to get that new school with your help. We need approval for the funding to cover the gap for school renovations, not because we need additional amenities, but because we need basics. Whether gym, classroom size, or library, each area plays an important and vital role in the future of our students. I would like to address a few new features of the school plan. Regarding the gymnasium, a dedicated gymnasium is needed to meet the needs of the student body. This new gym needs to be one attached to the school building and not shared with a public facility where security and outside access may be an issue. I would also like to address safety. We all know violence and violent acts are a concerning part of our world today. The design of the renovations gives an entrance, exit, as well as student travel throughout the campus and increased security that each student needs. At BGE today, you cannot enter the front of the building without ringing a buzzer and being granted admittance. However, the trailers in the back of the building are not secure like the main building, and the students have to travel outside in the elements several times a day to go to different classrooms and activities. Caroline County has invested 2 years of planning and work into this project already. Bonds have been secured, and a timeline of when this project needs to be done are laid out. Without the extra funding, we will not be able to move forward with this project, and this opportunity may not be available to us at a later date. Thank you for the time to speak. I hope each of you make the right decision and fully support the budget needed to build the right school for the future of Bowling Green. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'd like to present these to you. These are forms that were signed by parents of Bowling Green Primary and Bowling Green Elementary that were sent out Friday, and this is how many we've received already. Well over 200. We'd like to present that to you, who support full funding for our school. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there...
Good evening, Chairman, Board of Supervisors.
Good evening.
I'm here tonight to support full funding.
Before you go, you got to tell us your name.
Felicia Smithers, Reedy Church District.
We need that.
I'm here to support full funding of the renovation of the Bowling Green Primary School into a pre-K through 5 elementary school. Initially, I was an ambivalent proponent of the pre-K through 5 concept, even though my children had previously attended such schools. Growing up in Caroline County some decades ago, I remember going from the primary school to the elementary school. I thought it was a good setup. However, now that I have a daughter who's made the transition from primary school to elementary, I firmly believe pre-K through 5 is the better concept. With pre-K through 5, there is continuity from one year to the next for 6 years that you don't have with the current way the schools are set up. A student who has a history, for instance, of struggling with a particular subject doesn't have to start anew with that struggle, with a new set of support systems and new administrators learning how to deal with that student's issues in a new school. The staff will, in the pre-K through 5 school, the staff will already be aware of and will have an educational bridge already established through each grade level to support that student. I also believe it's better for the parents. I think parents will be more invested in supporting the school in various ways if they are a part of it for 6 years instead of only 3 or 4 as they are now. We can save on resources, no longer having to light and have light and water in 2 schools, no longer having to split maintenance services for 2 buildings. Buses will only have 1 stop to make instead of going to both of the schools. Also, I believe that good schools strengthen the local economy. I think that one of the things that businesses look for when they choose to relocate or to locate are the school systems. You know, any business that's relocating, they're going to bring a certain portion of their current employees with them, and they're going to need to have a good place for those employees to go. We don't want them going to Spotsylvania. We don't want them going to Hanover. We want them to come to Caroline because we want to build this local economy. Please fully fund this school renovation soon. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Lori Askew from Reedy Church. I am actually here to support also the full funding of Bowling Green Elementary, Bowling Green Primary School. I'm a special education teacher at Bowling Green Elementary, so I fully support this. I don't have a planned speech for you. I just want you to know that I represent a lot of the all the teachers, not a lot of them, that we desperately need this school to be fully funded. Until you walk in our shoes on a daily basis and see what we have to go through every day and the supports that we need, the resources that we need, having the two schools together, as the young lady that was here before me, I'm going to piggyback on what she's saying, it will bring a cohesiveness that we do not have now. With that cohesiveness, our test scores will go up. Therefore, Caroline County's educational system will improve. So I just would like for you to fully fund this school system as far as the Bowling Green Elementary and Primary School goes. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
I typed it this time. Maybe I can breathe.
You have all the time you want. Well, almost.
Oh, thank you.
My mistake.
Karen Lambert, Reedy Church District. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Board, Mr. Parton, staff, and everyone. I am responding to statements made during meetings in response to citizens' comments. I continually hear a couple of supervisors refer to a person's right to do what they want with their property and rezoning and special exemption actions brought before you. As others of you know, the current zoning of a property affords the property owner certain rights that may be exercised in allowable ways. When you ask for a rezoning or special exemption, you may be infringing or trampling on your neighbor's property rights and the benefits and protection afforded to them by the current zoning. Also, we are well aware that the comprehensive plan is not set in stone and is just a tool, but it is a tool we depend on. In the county's own statement of intent, the Rural Preservation District was established for the specific purposes of maintaining the rural character and facilitating existing and future crop farms and non-intensive agricultural operations, the conservation of natural resources, and the discouraging of suburban sprawl. When citizens look at the comp plan, they do use it as a tool. When they see an area zoned in a particular way which affords them the conditions they seek to live, such as a rural atmosphere, or if they choose near shopping and county utilities, that is where they buy or rent. When there is so much land zoned commercial, business, or even labeled for future development, they resent a rezoning or special exemption being placed next door or well within an RP zoned area. It is akin to someone moving into community with an HOA and proffers so they will be protected from certain aspects of normal neighborhood living. You feel that the HOA will enforce the rules that give you the quality of life you are seeking. How would residents in these communities feel if a new HOA president or board allowed new elements into the community with excuses of boosting home sales or meeting of friends or their own wants or needs? While possibly not affecting the whole community, some residents will be affected by the change, and in time the whole character of the neighborhood could change. We look to you to embrace the intent and purpose of these zoning districts. We look to you to protect us and our children's rights to enjoy our property. Be thoughtful and careful where and what changes are allowed. I am sure there are county agencies that can assist those wanting to do business within the county to locate suitable properties in appropriately zoned areas and in those slated for development. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lambert. Is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding any matter? Is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding any matter? Is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding any matter? Okay, hearing none, the public comment section is declared closed. We will, normally we don't respond to public comments, but at this time I will. For Mr. Terry and Mr. Norton, where'd you go? Okay, thank you. I can't see that far. All right. You stay there. I've asked Mr. Parton if he will look directly into the things you're asking about the reorganization. So Mr. Parton will be your point of contact, and you can work from him, and then he'll bring that to the board if that's the final result. And for all of the people who came to talk about the schools, the Board of Supervisors has proposed a joint meeting with the school board to actually discuss the school. Officially, the Board of Supervisors has no understanding or knowledge of anything other than what we've read in the paper. I've asked Mr. Parton to communicate with the school system to get us information directly and officially on what the budget shortfall was and where the schools are. So if we said yes to you right now, we wouldn't know what that number was. So we plan, and as the latter part of our agenda, is to decide when we're going to have that joint meeting with the school board. For those of you who don't know, the county borrowed $3 million and got a $6 million federal grant / loan for a total of $9 million. So that's how much funding the county put forward to this project. And I understand from just what I read in the paper, the bids came in at $12 million. So they're apparently $3 million short. And I think there was just what I read in the paper again, a $500,000 architectural fee that's included. So I see Dr. Kelo in the back. Mr. Parton has communicated with the school board office. As soon as we get the official numbers, we can kind of sit down with the school board and discuss what our plan of action is. But until we get those, we can't really do anything until then. And we will try to schedule a joint meeting with the school board at a later part in our agenda. So having said that, we'll move on to agenda item number 4, which is the adoption of the regional water supply plan for Caroline County and the town of Bowling Green. I think we had discussed this before, and the only thing we had was a decision about whether we should make our approval before the town of Bowling Green did or not, and we're still in that same position. Is that right, Mr. Schiebel?
That's correct. We've had a conversation with the DEQ about our submission. We have met with the town of Bowling Green and worked with them and have made changes reflected as you all have received in your package. And the Water Committee, consisting of 2 town council members, have approved that to send forth to town council, who has approved their public hearing, which will be this Thursday. DEQ has recommended, as our plan is due on November 2nd, that the board adopt the resolution and our section of the plan and submit it on tomorrow. As long as it's postmarked by tomorrow, we have met our requirements. We do not anticipate any changes to the Bowling Green section. However, we won't know until their public hearing if anything has changed. With that, I would recommend approving the resolution for the water supply plan. Glad to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Schiebel? I think we're basically in the same position we were 2-3 weeks ago.
Other than we now have a concurrence with the town that they agree with what the plan has now.
Oh, okay.
There were some issues the last time that they still had some outstanding issues that we have addressed and made some changes that they are now happy with.
Okay. That's a big differentiator. Questions?
I guess that's what I was going to ask, is where was the town? Because I got this yesterday, and I got to say I haven't finished it. I did see some further delineation of wells in the town and boundaries and that kind of stuff. Is that basically all that's been changed?
That there was some language that was added as far as working with the town and the county for the future development of the service area between the Milford area and the town of Bowling Green. And basically we've matched the map in accordance with the comp plan. That was one of the changes that they definitely wanted to see changed. We removed any wording that was in there that said Milford Sanitary District to Milford Service Area, as we no longer operate the sanitary district. So we removed all of that. And then there's been a few word changes in Section 8 underneath of the town, which we've highlighted to you in the memo. In no way has it really affected the county's part of the plan, other than changing the service area map for the town. And that was really amending the areas that they actually serve. The original map showed the town boundary. They actually have Maury Heights, section out 301, section up Route 2 to VDOT that they actually serve that is outside of the town. And then including the future service area that was in the comp plan.
Thank you.
You're
Mr.
welcome.
Akers, you had a question?
At any point did we discuss with the town the ability of the town to help the county if there were concerns with water issues? And I know we're not hooked to them right now, but I think we probably have lines that are pretty, I'm not sure.
Yeah, they're pretty close. We're within 500 feet or so between our service area and their service area,
Right.
and it'd be fairly easily to do. One of the changes that were actually made in the original water supply plan, it said that the county would provide water to the town of Bowling Green, and the town of Bowling Green said, well, it doesn't say anything about us providing water to you. So that's one of the changes that we made because it's very feasible for them to do that. And as soon as we were done with this, the beginning of next year, we really want to sit down and talk with them about a possible connection on an emergency basis between the two locations in case, one, they have a problem or we have a problem, that we can support each other if that's needed.
That was my concern, is the fact that, I knew there was something about us supplying water, but I also saw in here where they indicated they had ample water to take care of their needs, and so if that's the case, they may be able to help us at some point if we need it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Popowitz?
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the resolutions presented by staff and move this forward to the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Second. Second. Motion made by Mr. Popowitz, seconded by Mr. Underwood to approve the adoption of the Regional Water Supply Plan with the county and the town of Bowling Green. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. Agenda item number 5 was continued discussion of Fred. Mr. Parton, I believe we had a couple of questions regarding Fred, one of which was how we could get out of this agreement if we entered into a multiple-year agreement. The other, I believe Mr. Seeley in particular had a question about the costs of the additional buses in the service facility. Mr. Parton?
Mr. Chairman, in response to your first question, I did speak with Bev Cameron, the Fredericksburg City Manager, and he indicated that he would be very willing to discuss a mutually agreeable way to get out of the agreement before the 5 years is up, provided that we met all the other conditions. In light of the George Washington Regional Commission Transportation Alternative Study, which will not be completed in time to make this decision. With regard to the second issue, Mr. Cameron has indicated that our projected cost for bus replacement over the 5 years that we would be asked to enter into the agreement is about $7,700 total, not per year, total over the 5-year period. The reason that's so low is that they get 100% CMAQ funding for bus replacement, and so they're able to keep the cost of the participating localities very low.
Thank you, Mr. Parton. Any questions? Mr. Seeley, you had a question before. Does that satisfy you?
Well, I just think it's interesting they get 100% reimbursement. They want us to pay $7,700. I just, okay.
And I'm just guessing, but I would think some of that would be in their facilities and things of that nature. You know, you're a businessman. You know
I
how that
understand.
works.
I do have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Akers?
Is it possible, and have we discussed with them, they're talking about 2 routes, and the 2 routes that will be established in July of 2012 may not be the same 2 routes that will be acceptable to the county in 2013 and 14. Right. Is there something in here that says, because it appears that Fredericksburg is going to make this pretty tight and bind us to certain requirements. And I understand that. They have to plan for the future as well. But is there some way that we can change the routes without additional cost and efforts?
I can't answer that for sure, Mr. Akers, without further discussion with them, but I believe, based on my conversations with Mr. Cameron, they're going to be willing to do that. Now, they're going to want to have the final say over that.
And the reason I bring the question up,
about it,
right, is, and I'm sure we did, and I apologize for not being at the last meeting, but when the YMCA opens, it's the fact that we want to have transportation, and we want to be able to bring people from other parts of the county.
And McKesson.
And McKesson, is another one. But those are things we may need to change the routes from what they are today or what they'll be effective July 1?
I think they're receptive to that as long as they believe that.
Could we, and I'm not saying stop this process, but could we go ahead and find out for sure so we'll know?
I think that was one. Yeah, that was one we want to try to confirm that.
Sure.
Considering the factors we have, you know, McKesson, different, maybe the YMCA, maybe other developments, we'd like to be able to have a little bit of input in the routes just to make sure that they satisfy our needs.
Right. I think they're amenable to that.
Okay.
But I'll confirm that. We have until December to act on this. We just need to get we need to commit in writing by December for them to submit their application for state and federal grant funding.
I think we basically said we were going to commit if we got the out clause and if we got the numbers. So we can go ahead and commit and again make sure that we communicate with them our desire to have some influence in the routes. And I think that's it. So I guess since Mr. Emerson is here, I probably need a motion to say we need to go ahead. Yeah, I figured you'd say that. All right, is there a motion to move ahead with the Fred funding or Fred service in the county, knowing now we've got a out clause in the 5-year contract they want us to sign and that our maximum maintenance would be $7,700 over the 5-year period?
So move.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Akers, seconded by Mr. Underwood, that we move forward with the Fred funding. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. Agenda item number 6 is discussion of the Governor's Task Force for Local Government Mandate Review.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, you have in your packet a copy of a letter from Governor McDonald regarding the creation of a task force for local government mandate review that has been created in connection with a law passed by the 2011 session of the General Assembly. A 5-member task force has been created. It consists of 4 locally elected officials and 1 city manager, and the whole point of the task force is to review state mandates imposed on localities and recommend either temporary suspension or outright permanent repeal. And the governor has asked, there was a conference call last week, he has asked that all local governments give input into which mandates that are unfunded are particularly burdensome or onerous, and provide that information to the task force. You also have in your packet a list compiled by VACO, their senior leadership, of what they have identified as the most burdensome mandates, as well as a document compiled by Fran Hatcher that attempts to quantify the impact of some of the mandates on county government. So staff's looking for input from the board on what to provide to the task force in the way of priorities.
Mr. Parton, I should have asked you this before, but you put together a list before this committee was formed. There was at least one member of the Governor's Reform Commission that lived in the county, and that member asked me for some information regarding mandates, and Mr. Parton put together some information at that time. I don't know if we've shared it with the rest of the board, which we should, and we should also include that in our response. So if you have that, or if any other board members has any particular item they think should be included, make sure they pass it to Mr. Parton, because I think this is a case where more is better than less. Okay? Questions?
I'm not so sure we shouldn't target at least our top 3, because if you send everything, it just goes in a pile, and we haven't really enumerated what we think are the top 3 most burdensome.
Well, that is a way to look at it, but then if we submit 3 and they don't do those 3, but we got 25 others that we're still stuck with, that doesn't really help us either, right?
Well, if they look for rating and they say, okay, they send us everything, and we haven't really told them what we think the order is or the most expensive to us,
I think there's a pitfall in just sending a laundry list of everything, because we haven't really enumerated what we think are the top issues.
I would, if you look at the,
We just need to pick some things.
if you look at the information in the packet, it says they have a complete list of mandates available, and they give the website. But the interesting thing is, it says staff can provide paper copies of the 300-page report if requested by the board. So apparently, everybody else is turning in everything, and this is the 300-page report. So if I go in there with 3, and everybody else has everything, tell me. I'm willing to be flexible.
Let me just say
How does
that
the board wish to go?
at least
Top priorities or
from a
everything?
perspective. In talking to healthcare professionals and hospital administrative staff, one of the big things being on the Social Services Board is the Comprehensive Services Act.
CSA.
We currently spend county funds $500,000 a year. How better could we spend $500,000 a year? And if the health care reform comes that we see coming, they're saying that could be 5 times higher than it is today. So if we have an opportunity to get rid of one thing that we could save the most on, that's an unfunded mandate, to me that would be number 1 on my list. Just a thought from my side.
I'm flexible and willing to look at however the board would like to do it. So, other options?
I personally didn't like some of the things that had been shown here in this particular example, because these are some things that I believe local government should be doing. For instance, when it comes to social services, now I think we need to provide a certain amount of assistance to the citizens of the county. So I think we need to look at that. When we talk about the public animal holding facility required, I think we need a place to have animals. If you don't, you're going to have them running all over the county, and it's going to create more of a problem and more of a nuisance. So I think we have to have those things in place. Now, I think some of the things that we can look at is what they require the facility to be. It's almost like living in a hotel in some places. But I do believe that there are other mandates, and Mrs. Hatcher and I had this conversation earlier, that is not included in here that I think is important and the county has certainly argued about. There are some educational mandates that are required on local governments that I believe we need to look at. The Comprehensive Services Act, I realize it's been expanded, but we were putting money into schools, and schools was using this money to take care of some of the students that are now in comprehensive services. We were giving monies to the Sheriff's Department. We were giving monies to social services. We were giving monies to all of these other agencies that help make up part of what's now being done for comprehensive services. So the $490,000 that we spent last year is not all new money. A lot of it was money that was in other agencies. Now, the amount of money has certainly increased because the number of people that go into comprehensive services has increased. But I do believe there are some things that, the E911 system, local governments are required service. I don't think that's an unreasonable mandate. I think it's something that we should have been doing.
That's more
and
of
probably
a
shouldn't have been
federal thing now.
Yeah, but it shouldn't have been something that we were mandated.
But the fact that it's narrow band, it's like the federal government said you have to change this technology.
Right.
So
what I'm saying is these
that's
are
not
things
it.
that we have on the list, and if we approve this list, we're approving those things to be sent and shouldn't be sent. These are services we should be providing to the citizens of the county to begin with. I believe that if we fully looked at the mandates that we pay, and maybe it's the list that you have that we haven't
No, that's
heard
the
about.
list you have. That's the list you have.
Okay, are things that I think would be more important to the county and try. There are some transportation mandates that we're required to do that we have not been in the past, and we're not.
Okay, let's do this.
Constitutional officers.
Well, there's a list here for constitutional officers. Let's do this. You do have the list that Mr. Parton prepared originally.
Okay.
There are dollar figures associated with each of these. One in particular, VRS reimbursements to constitutional officers and staff. That's $106,000. There are other things in here just to scan for large numbers. We pay for the real estate reassessment.
But that
Shouldn't
benefits
that be,
the county.
that's something we do anyhow.
Yeah, that's
So,
to benefit the county.
I mean, there are quite a few things in here. Let's do this. And we don't have to make this decision or send it in right now. But why don't we come up with, say, 5? That's better than 3. It's a little bit more. It's not 500 pages or whatever. Come up with 5 that we think or each supervisor thinks are key, and then we'll compile that into a list and let Mr. Parton be the collector. And then we'll discuss that on the 22nd and say we've got, 7 of those things are all the same. And we'll just submit whatever's the same. We can go from there. Okay? All right, that's fair. Okay, we will, and Mr. Parton will, I guess, communicate with us via email in between, and you just come up with 5 that you think are the top 5, and we'll finalize that list on the 22nd. Okay, that was agenda item number 6. Agenda item number 7, I take it, is Mr. Schiebel, because there's now a proposed solid waste convenience site procedures manual.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The utility staff has completed draft revisions to the solid waste convenience sites attendant procedures manual. Because this function of the county government is important to the citizens in the county in a direct and highly visible way, staff thought it to be appropriate to bring this before you to have your input and approve this prior to us finalizing this. There are some financial implications to the positive for us. Due to scavenging that currently is allowed, we do lose metal and batteries, so we do suspect that we will gain some additional funding due to that. Just a brief overview as you have a complete copy. The convenience site attendant's job description is attached. The job duties and procedures, including the attendant's office area and their expectations, monitoring of what's being dumped, scavenging requirements and regulations, parking, uniforms, compensation and benefits are included in there. Just talking about them, unfortunately we don't have any real benefits for them. It just kind of states that in there. Site regulations, what is acceptable waste that are allowed to be dumped and what we do recycle. Site emergencies and contacts if there are any issues. Site operations, including equipment operations, refuse disposal, recycling, opening and closing, street litter, and MSDS sheets, which we have compiled and given and hope to give to each of the attendants. Once this has been approved with your input, we're going to sit down with each attendant and a meeting and review the entire procedures manual in depth and have each attendant sign off on this. And this is kind of giving us a way to say these are the requirements. From time to time we'll hear an employee, well, I was hired to push that button, and not realizing that there's more to do to the job than just doing that. And this gives us a way to monitor and make sure that the employees know the expectations that are required. As you know, this is the face of Caroline County. 90% of our residents use our facilities, and they don't go to the treasurer's office on a regular basis. Most people send their checks in. They don't go to the county offices for anything else, but they do dump their trash on a regular basis. So we want to make sure that we're maintaining our facilities the best that we can, and that the employees are representing Caroline County as they ought to.
Okay. And Mr. Schiebel, I understand some of this is in reaction to some of the scavenging issues we've had before. Personally, my personal opinion, just my personal opinion, is that sometimes it's a good thing to have a place where you can drop things off. I had this discussion years ago, and I can't remember who was there, but old bicycles. There are people who drop their old bicycles off, and there are people who can't necessarily afford to buy a new bicycle for their kid. But a can of spray paint and a new tire or two, and they've got a new bicycle. So I'm not as against scavenging or to some degree, I guess, what recycling, we could call it, and maybe that could be done at the big site, which is Bowling Green, and maybe after we expand Ladysmith, but maybe that would be something we could add in. I understand what you're trying to do and the things with batteries and all that. I understand that, but I've seen no scavenging will be tolerated 3 or 4 times going through here, so.
Yeah, we've, that was one of the things, I can tell you, we have struggled with that. The previous manual allowed certain things to be taken, you know, a certain amount of time, depending on it was, if somebody were to give something to you. And it has created such a gray area that it's what is allowed and what's not allowed, without creating a complete list of what can be taken and when. And if you say, well, if the washing machine works, you can take it, and, well, which washing machine? I mean, we get a lot of washing machines in, and they account for quite a bit of the recycled metal that we have. And I understand, we have struggled as staff trying to figure out how to manage that, where we're getting the best bang for the buck that the county really ought to be getting, but yet not penalizing someone. And a lot of discussions went on with that, and it was just easier to say, to establish a no scavenging policy to make it clear that, you know, nothing would be taken, instead of trying to create a laundry list and then deciding on an individual basis if that was appropriate or not.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Seeley.
One of the questions I had at the farmer's market was decomposed leaves for use in gardening. And they were told they couldn't take those anymore. I guess at one point in time you could.
That's because no means no now.
Well, and I'm there. And the other thing is, we have a guy that is using wood to fire a furnace to heat greenhouses, and he was looking at the huge, people are bringing stuff in cut up in logs. And I guess I'm looking at those two. I understand no means no. Is there... And I was there one day when somebody was trying to climb through a mountain of pallets to get something on the top of the wood pile, and I was like terrified. So I understand the liability of somebody crawling through that stuff, but is there a mechanism or a method for mulch, the decomposed leaves, and some of the wood that comes cut up into lengths that's pine or whatever it is that's put back there, I guess. I'm with Mr. Thomas.
Right. Real quick, right now our current disposal method for any of the debris that comes in, as far as yard debris, not including leaves, anything under 8 inches in diameter, and brush and so on and so forth. Currently, we take that, we assemble that, and at certain times of the year we'll burn that. It's no cost to us, other than we do have to provide manpower there. Last year we burnt, 12 days afterwards we had a fire at the landfill and caused quite a bit of a mess over there. We have been working with the company, and hopefully within the next 2 weeks we'll be having a mulch company coming in and actually grinding all that material and hauling it off-site at no cost to the county. To us it's a win-win. We get all that as recycling material that we currently don't get as recycling if we burn it. And they want as much of that material as they can. So if this works out, that they come to the Bowling Green convenience site and grind all that up and haul all that mulch away for them to be able to sell, I'm sure they're going to want as much of that as they can when that happens. You know, it is easier for us to control it at the main site because we have more staff, full-time staff that can be over there at certain times. We've got the drivers that are in and out. We've got the supervisor that's in and out. So it is a little bit easier to control it there than all the other sites to be able to do anything. You know, we do have a pile where leaves go because, you know, leaves, even though they don't weigh a whole lot, but if they get thrown into the open top containers, they take up a lot of volume for a little bit of nothing, and it costs us a lot of money hauling containers up and down the road with a ton or two in it. So what we have done is anything over a certain amount of bags would go to the Bowling Green site, and then we pile them in a pile. To me, that would make perfect sense to be able to use that and distribute that out of that, because that's not a cost to the county. It wouldn't be taking anything away. It's in a controlled environment. So the mulch and leaves that are in that area would be very easily to do that. Part of the issue we've got now is some of that really needs to be gone through. We need to clean that area up and start kind of from scratch. There's a lot of times people are dumping trash in there, and you don't know the difference between a trash bag, because right now people were just allowed to throw their bags in there. So you've got bags as well as the leaves, and the leaves really need to be dumped out of the bags so they could be mulched appropriately to do that.
How about this, Joe? Say we do, you know, we're going to collect all the stuff anyhow, right?
Right.
And you're going to transport it all to the Bowling Green site anyhow.
That's correct.
Why don't we set up something where you say once a month, the first Saturday of every month, anybody that wants to come over and take some things can have it. And then after that Saturday, you recycle it or get rid of it. And then there's some, some share. You still got the issue of, hey, can I have that washing machine? But everything goes into the, quote, recycling or whatever you want to call it area. And then at the end of that Saturday, it's gone. It's back into whatever.
My biggest concern would be is if we allow everything, it then gets into your refrigeration products. When you're talking about air conditioners and refrigerators, and people coming to strip the copper out. One, it is valuable, and people would want that. But two, it creates an issue because we have to monitor that. Once we receive that product, it becomes county property. DEQ mandates us to extract all the refrigerant out of units like that.
Okay. No refrigerators. Okay. I'm just thinking about. I stuff in my house I got out of the landfill. There's a lot of people do.
Right. There's sofas. Sometimes somebody brings a sofa and said, hey, I bought a new sofa. And the problem is it sits outside, it gets wet, and then people don't want it. There are things that could be recycled that people could use.
Well, it's just, I'm trying to think of ways you can help somebody who might not be able to help themselves right now.
Right.
And in all honesty, I didn't have a new bicycle until I was in high school. So I really don't want to know where they came from. But I'm sure I'm not the only one like that. And that's what we have to really look at is, times are hard. At 7, 8 years old, I don't care whether the bicycle is spray painted over. I got a bicycle. There are all sorts of things like that we can kind of help each other
We will definitely go back and see if we can revise it and come up with a plan of trying to, to allow some scavenging within reason and bring that back to the board. Again, we struggled a lot trying to come up with the gray area and spent a lot of time. That was really the hardest part of the entire manual because, it is such a variety of can you not, what can you.
I could see it was a tough decision because, like I said, I saw no scavenging at all 4 or 5 times through the whole document.
Batteries bring us between $5 and $7 a piece on batteries.
No batteries.
And people,
I'm not going to give my kid a battery.
Right. Well, there's just a lot of people. That's easy money. You come up to the site and you pick up 10, 15 batteries, and you can carry them right up the road and get money. So it's we are trying to be cautious of the dollar and saving as much money as we can, but at the same time we don't want to overburden our system or penalize people that could use those things.
See if you can kind of come up with something. Is there anybody else who had a?
I do.
Mr. Akers?
Yes.
You want something out of landfill too?
No, but one man's trash is another man's treasure. I've always heard that.
That's my dad's philosophy.
So I think that's true. My concerns are more in line with the job description and requirements of the employees. I see under required knowledge, skills, and abilities, we say that the operator must be able to operate equipment under hazardous conditions. Why are we asking them to operate under hazardous conditions, and what are you considering hazardous conditions?
Actually, this has already been approved. We just included this as part of the manual that was in here. But hazardous conditions, if if it is snowing, there are times at the convenience sites.
But you say inclement weather. Right. Under that. So, what is inclement weather?
That's a requirement of the Fair Labor Standards Act and your job descriptions.
That they have to be required to operate under hazardous conditions.
Well, you have to define in their job descriptions their working environment and conditions that they may encounter so that it's in writing when they first get it and there's no question.
Why would we want to make an employee operate equipment under hazardous conditions, and depends on what hazardous conditions are?
Mr. Akers, I think that the definition of the job and the nature of the job makes it a hazardous condition because of anything of...
There's machinery, and the machine could hurt you. Or
the machinery can hurt you, but mainly I think it's the bacteria and the airborne and all the different things that you're talking about.
But we need to define hazardous. Hazardous to me means that there's live wires that you still must be able to handle. That's hazardous conditions.
Any equipment that moves.
That's not hazardous?
Any equipment that moves is hazardous.
It doesn't describe what hazard is. So how can it not be in
But
the
that's an
definition?
OSHA standard, right?
That's an OSHA standard. Any
Right.
piece of equipment that moves is a hazardous piece of equipment.
Okay.
Your lawnmower is a hazardous piece of equipment. And
Okay.
that's, we don't have a choice.
We need to, I think, clarify that for the employees to understand what we are talking about. Just generalization of hazardous conditions, to me, doesn't cut it. We need to clarify what those hazardous conditions are going to be.
But you can't list everything.
Well, I
You
think
can't
you
list
can.
everything.
We can look at that. That's not an issue. We'll look at
It's a
it.
general,
I mean,
hazardous is a general statement, not
I don't
specific.
buy that. I don't believe that
Or-
hazardous condition is just a general statement.
You could say hazardous as defined by OSHA. Right. And
That
would
may be,
clarified.
that may be something else. That is true. But just to say hazardous conditions, I mean, that doesn't cut it.
Right, I agree with-
It's in, the interpretation of individual as to what hazardous is. My other question is, how many employees are we going to lose for the education requirement? If this is a requirement that they have a high school education or a GED, how many employees are we going to lose?
This wouldn't affect any of your current employees, Mr. Akers.
And it does say preferred.
I understand it says preferred, but I'm not sure that, does it take a high school education, do we
Well, I mean,
require that?
Again, it's preferred. It doesn't mean that it's going to necessarily eliminate someone who doesn't have it, but it is a preference.
And he must maintain a valid Virginia driver's license? If someone brings him to work or her to work? What do we care how they get there as long as they get to work?
I guess just making sure they're there in a timely fashion
I don't know.
and have reliable transportation. Typically, sometimes we'll put, it must have reliable transportation instead of a driver's license, so reliable transportation could mean you'd bring me to work every day and as reliable as
Reliable
you are.
transportation, I think, is fine, and we need to probably look at reliable, but to require them to have a Virginia driver's license, I mean, maybe someone that's lost their driver's license and need a job, and we give them a job. But according to this, they can't get a job with us. The other question has to do with the attendants assisting customers with their trash, bags of trash. Now, I know that sounds great, and maybe something we want them to do, especially the handicapped or someone that's physically unable to do that. But then we don't say, we say to assist customers who are physically limited. But another place I think we say they are to assist unloading of trash. I don't know if that's something that we wanted to do. And I'm only asking these questions. The other has to assure the road on which the site is located is clean of litter in the vicinity of the site. Now, my question is, if we are saying to the employees, you must go out on the roadway, and I know with the one at Ladysmith, there's an extremely sharp curve just before you get to the site, coming from Route 1 south of Ladysmith. What happens if that individual gets hit by a vehicle? He's out there cleaning up trash in the roadway. Do I?
With no benefits.
With no benefits. He's getting no benefits. Insurance. Why are we requiring that?
That was really in there because of the complaints that we get from board members to clean the trash up in front of the sites. We coordinate with staff to go out there when we have, to make sure we're overlapping to try to pick up within a site distance of the site, because when you've got a convenience site there and you've got trash out there, it does look unpleasant. We used to have a full-time maintenance staff at Solid Waste Division that used to maintain the sites and the roads in front of them, clean the equipment and painting and miscellaneous things. And with the elimination of that position, we still had the need of trying to pick the trash up and keep things cleanly in the areas of the sites.
See, I maintain that we still have a full maintenance crew, but they're just in jail. They need to come out and pick up some trash. That way I don't have to pay for it.
And the jail still does that. They've got areas that they do in the streets, and they come and pick up in the county.
Community service involved in, rather than burden the citizens with the cost.
And the court system also has a program in place where they actually assign streets as part of the punishment through the local courthouse and have adopted areas that are required to be picked up by them.
Well, then I think one of the surface areas
could be one where they're assigned to, not to burden the citizen.
Yeah, we can easily remove that.
We talk about cost, I mean.
Yeah, I'm just saying that we're putting, these people make $7.50 now. I'm not sure what the pay is, $7.50 or...
Most of them are making, I would say 80% of them are making minimum wage.
Okay, minimum wage.
Unfortunately, when we actually had the minimum wage went up, we used to have some staggered salaries in there. People that had been here over time had gotten a 2%, 3% every once in a while raise, 25 cents here and there. So people that had been here for 18, 20 years actually were making $1, $1.50 more. And when we went from minimum wage, jumped up over those 2-year period, everybody just about went to minimum wage.
So the point is, we're giving them minimum wage, and we are now requiring them to do...
Wait. We haven't been running convenience sites for 20 years.
Well, I'll agree with that, but I mean, I let him go ahead with 18, 20.
17?
I mean, I wouldn't go make an issue of that.
Yeah. I've been here for 18, and we've had convenience sites since I was here. My first job was on our 3rd convenience site in Dawn.
But
Go ahead, I'll prove
all right, the other issue I had was, and again, this is just, and we could possibly look at this later with us.
No, I mean, we definitely brought this to get that.
If those, I can tell you, site attendants in some sites are well respected and well thought of because they are friendly and they work well with the residents. And somebody may bring them a box of cookies or may bring them something around Christmas time. And what we're saying here is no gifts. They can't accept anything that someone offers to them.
That's for all county employees.
Well, yeah, but you make a lot more money than they do, sir.
I understand, but
again,
it's just a county policy and trying to make sure that was understood. I mean, it's...
All right, it's 15.
15?
And the last thing I have has...
96.
With number 3 on attendant office. Attendant office.
Yes, sir.
You're saying that the attendant office is for you to get shelter from the weather and is not to be used to gather personal items. Only items needed for daily work will be kept in the office unless it is authorized by a supervisor. Now, it's either for shelter and to keep only items that are to be used on the site or is to be used for something else. Why does a supervisor have to approve what you keep in there if it's only for office, only for shelter and only for things that are used on the site?
That was just a cover in case, I mean, just like you could say a supervisor could approve you recycling a bicycle and then it becomes...
but you just said earlier that under no circumstances can you...
I know, but that's why I was saying if that was an option. I was making sure you didn't rule that option out because that was something I was thinking about. We could have supervisor approve an
I think
item.
what we did was we did a shotgun blast and tried to...
Okay.
Yeah.
Obviously, Mr. Schiebel, it appears that there are several issues in there we would like you to look at again.
That's fine.
And if you would look at those several issues...
So do we want to allow clutter in the sites or not, in the attendant? And that's what it's trying to do. We go in there and people just got all kinds of stuff that stay in there. We need to get this out. This doesn't belong here. It's not county property. In the offices. And again, they're no shanties.
You're not going to put a bicycle in the office. You're going to put a bicycle out somewhere next to the boxes and say this is where our scavenger area is.
Right. But you'll be surprised the clutter that really accumulates in these things. And then if you get rid of something, well, that was mine. You didn't tell me. So it was really trying to cover those things that's saying, now we can say it needs to be clean, it's county space, make sure it's not cluttered, it doesn't belong there.
Do you have anything in your office that doesn't belong in there?
I guess it depends on how you define what doesn't belong there.
And so do I. And so does everybody else who has an office wherever they are. So some latitude and leeway should be employed, bless you. We just need to just look at it again. We understand the constraints you're under and why you did all of these things. We understand all of these things.
Right.
But we have to come to some happy medium with all of these things.
Absolutely. And that's why we wanted to bring this before you and get your input. And then, trying to just say why we put it in here, to make sure you understood our standpoint.
That's fine. Well, we don't want to micromanage you, but we're going to give Mr. Akers one last thing to look at it before we go into it. And Mr. Popowitz has 5 things.
We talk in terms of you can only bring one pickup load in, or you can only bring in pickup loads of trash.
Okay.
All residents of the business of the county can dump up to a pickup load at a time. Now, this, and it was brought to your attention, about a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago, I was called one Saturday morning, and he was in Bobby's district, but anyway, I took care of the problem.
He's not running.
And he was complaining that he had his trash on his pickup. I guess that he throws the trash bags into his pickup every day or every other day or what have you, and waits 2 or 3 weeks to bring it back, bring the trash out. He then put it into a trailer, hooked the trailer to the pickup, and brought it to the site. The supervisor was there and refused to let him unload the trash because it was on the trailer and not in the back of the pickup. So he goes home, takes the trash out of the trailer, puts it back in the pickup, and takes it back to the site. Now,
He should have never gone home. I would have done that right there.
I mean, let's get real with some of these things that we're doing.
Common sense.
Common sense.
What it's trying to do is eliminate the contractors that try sneaking in there. And the gentleman was asked if it was contractor trash, and he says, I don't need this hassle. And the two of them, talked about it, and the gentleman said, well, what do I need to do to dump my trash? And I understand it is a concern, because we definitely don't want to, if it's legitimate trash from a resident and they're trying to dump it, we don't want to be discouraging that. I mean, we want to make sure they're coming to the sites and disposing of that, not along the side of the road somewhere.
All right.
I'm not sure.
All right, let him go. Because Bobby's got
I'm
5
not
and
sure we
Reggie's got
should
more.
look at this, and once we have, whether it's Mr., whoever the new public works director is, I think that person needs to probably bring all this back together and look at it as well. I'm not sure there's something we need to go at right now.
Well, we've got nothing to hold the site attendants accountable for. We've got people that said they were hired to push a button, Mr. Akers, and I can tell you, it is so hard for us, and that's not my job. I can't do that. You're making me do something nobody else is doing, and it is creating a lot of issues. Part of the problem is we've gone so long without anybody in a supervisory position that it's really created a hard time, because we're getting a lot of freelancing out there, and somebody's going to get hurt if we don't put some regulations out there and try to make sure that they're doing the best job that they can. We don't want to be onerous in what we're doing. We want to make sure that everybody's being safe and we're moving forward in a public way.
Right. Bring back the job description later. Mr. Popowitz, real quick.
The only thing I had for you, Mr. Sheba, was if you could include the site plan for each one of the sites.
It's in the full manual. We did not include that. It's actually got a picture on each one that disconnects and actually has a site plan for each site of where things are located. This is the latest in the site showing your recycling containers, your 30 yards. So we do have site plans for each site in there as well.
Okay, thank you. That's my concern. Thank you.
All I want to say, Mr. Shebo, is that looking at this under procedures, I think it's written in a negative connotation. And I think we can, it says, do not stay in the office. Your job is to, we're talking to adults, not, to me it's just not written in the manner of cooperation.
Okay.
And I think that's what's missing here. And I hear you talking about employees who work for the county. And for me, Joe, it's real simple. You do the job that's required, or you find another job. I don't argue with people about their job.
Absolutely got to.
You simply have a conversation. This is what's required. And if people don't want the job, believe me, I know there's plenty of people out here who would like a job. And I don't think it takes fussing. I think you talk about what's required. I mean, the office, for example. I say you need to clean the office, and that's pretty much the end of the conversation. You make the next choice, whether you choose to clean the office or you choose to lose your job. But, again, I think, there's a responsibility for a person who accepts a job. It's a responsibility for those of us who supervise folks as well.
That's correct. And I agree 100%. But if the biggest thing that we hear is if it's not in writing, it's not true. So we've tried to outline everything so we can say, here's your job.
You don't have to outline everything in Virginia. It's a right to work state. And I say again, you treat people fairly. You create an environment. And if they choose not to be in that environment, that's their choice.
I agree. But we had an employee, I'll give you a perfect example. We got an employee that doesn't wear a vest. No one else has to wear it.
That's not a joy for you as supervisor. That's non-negotiable. If he doesn't wear a vest, he doesn't have a job. It's pretty simple to me.
That would be my opinion, sir.
Do you
but
think
we
the
need to
sheriff
come
is
back.
going, do you think the sheriff is going to let his officers work if they're not in uniform?
I agree.
So, I mean, that's to me, that's pretty easy. That's a short conversation.
Hey, Scott, is that written down?
So,
Now, I'm curious, is that written down? They've got to be in uniform to work? Okay.
yeah,
We finished with this.
yeah.
Ms. Shebel, I think you have direction. It was a valiant effort.
We will definitely make some modifications and bring it back. But I think it's really important that the employees know what's expected. They can't do their job if they don't know what's expected.
Okay. Well, why don't you incorporate the changes we have, and then make sure Mr. Parton gets it and gives it to the board, and we'll review it. We may not even put it on our next agenda, but I would like to review it in between that time. Okay?
That's fine. Thank
And
you.
then we'll come back from there.
Appreciate the board's time.
Well, thank you. And we do honestly appreciate your efforts. Oh. Wow. We did agenda item number 8. That was Mr. Fincham already. That was number 7. Wow. We're done. Agenda item number 9 is the county administrator's report. Schedule a joint meeting with the school board and the capital projects update. Calendars for when we can meet with the school board. Mr. Parton, well, we were trying to, they all left. I was wondering if there was a particular date or time we had to respond back to them.
I mean, they have bids. Do we have to meet within a certain amount of time?
Did they tell you? See, because I was serious. I just read it in the paper and nobody said anything to me about what. I'll do that.
Don't you have them on speed dial?
I'll do that. No, really, I don't have anything official. Mr. Parton asked them to give us the bid information and the final number where they were. Because all of these letters we got, they say, I support the school board's request for $12 million for full funding of the new school. But the school went through a reduction, so I don't know you were at the meeting, Mr. Seeley. What was the last number they had?
The last number that I saw was 11 million, like 6 something, 5 something. But that's still the $500,000 for the architectural fees were something that I didn't understand. I don't know where that plugs in.
Yeah. I should have stayed in architecture. All right. I thought they really wanted to meet. I think we said possibly the week of the 20. We meet on the 22nd.
Right.
Thanksgiving's the 24th.
Thanksgiving's the 24th. Excuse me? Oh, the offices are closed 23rd, 24th, 25th, so. We could meet conceivably on the 29th, because then we'll meet on the 13th. That'll be our last meeting. Yeah, it's kind of looking like that.
Well, that's almost the first, because it isn't, I guess, yeah,
Our
that's
meeting
the
is
first
the-
and the second of
Our meeting is the
December. in that
13th.
week.
Our meeting is the 13th. Their next meeting would be, I guess, the 12th. We could meet the week of the 5th. You going somewhere, is anybody here the 29th?
I'm not going anyplace, so I'll probably be here.
All right. It's the end of my fiscal year. I don't know where I'll be, but I'll try. All right. Mr. Parton, if you want to try to tell the school board that we can meet the 29th or the 6th. We're looking for those two. Oh, you don't know you'll be here the 29th? All right. The preferred date is the 6th. If we have any, other options, and could you also ask them for an actual number that they're looking for us to consider funding?
Well, actually, you probably need two sets of numbers. What they originally said, because what the parents are saying, what we're hearing tonight is different than what the pared down school board number was.
Right. And
So
that's,
I guess what we need to know
I
is
need
what
to-
the
I need
range
to-
is and what the data that goes with it is.
I need a number from the school board about what their school costs are, period, whether it's the original one or the second one, whatever they want to go with, because they've told us repeatedly to, let them take care of their responsibilities. So I just need to know whichever direction they're going in, I just need to know what that number is. And then we can figure it out from there.
Mr. Parton, I'd like a copy of the drawings and the bid documents, please, so we can make some decisions as to what's going on with their...
And any information that anybody wants, I guess, would help make your decision.
Yeah,
So-
because I want to see what they've done with their value engineering numbers as well, please.
And again, all we know is, and the other options are, we know that because we got the $6 million from the federal government, we're subject to, I believe it's the Davis-Bacon Act. Yep. And because we're subject to that, there's an extra $1 million in funding that has to be there because the salary scales are different. Right, but they're saying, and that's again, they're saying, or nobody said this to me, I read in the paper that number is between 1 million and 1.3. And I don't know what the real number is, so is it 1 million, is it 1.3? And you don't know either, I'm sure. Only that, right. So theoretically, it could be less than that. So we don't know that either. There's so many unknowns. We don't know. Really, we don't know what we don't know, but that's another story. So we need that information. I guess anything else they want to send us beforehand, so we'll have at least the ability to make a decision. Anything else you need?
Numbers.
Yeah. That's what we're looking at.
And a list of what that number includes so that we can talk about it. Because a number won't mean much.
Yeah, and I guess we're also supposed to talk, about their budget number, because that was one of the other things they wanted to meet, their budget number for next year as they do their budget now.
Do we know, have any idea, has Courtney given us any idea as to what debt retirement would be on that additional $3 million?
See, that's the other thing. It's got to be $3.5 million. If we still talk 12, I'm just saying. If we talk 12, which is what they would be $3 million over the 9 we had, but part of that 9 is $500,000 in architectural fees, so it would be $3.5 million more. And that wasn't something that was my understanding was in the whole process. So, okay.
As far as I'm concerned, you need to let them know they need to come prepared to discuss as to how we are off $3.5 million. They came to us in the summer, remember very well, and said we need $9 million in order to complete this renovation project.
And we're close, and it could come in less.
And it could come in less.
And that's
It was
what they
discussion.
said. They said it was
and
close.
now
and it could
we
come in
are
less.
12.5 million dollars. We need to know. They knew about the Davis-Bacon Act. They knew about that. So why are we $3.5 million or $3 million, whatever the number is, off from what they said just 3 months ago?
Yeah, $3 million
as to
more.
what they needed to us to borrow.
If you
And so I'd like to know that.
Now, in all fairness, and again, nobody told me this. I read in the paper. The Davis-Bacon Act numbers changed like a week before the bids were due, or somewhere in that time frame.
By $3 million?
No, $1 million. The 1 or 1.3 million. So that's something that I'm a little easier to accept.
Well, they may need to go back and have the contractors sort of break this project up into the $6 million and then the $3 million and separate out the two. Because if it only applies to the $6 million,
Right, it doesn't
and I don't know
apply
if
to
it's a percentage that someone is applying, whether it's a 10% increase on the project, then that certainly makes a difference of about $300,000 on the $3 million. That's 10% of the total project. So I think that needs to be clarified as well. And the other thing we need to know is from Courtney as to what is the debt retirement going to be on the additional $3 to $3.5 million.
And I guess another option is it possible to phase it? Is it possible to go ahead and spend the $9 million, we get something, and then a year or two from there, we can do $3 million? I'm not sure that's a good idea, but I just want to know what all the possibilities are.
My other question is, it's my understanding in reading in the paper that when I believe the Bowling Green representative on the school board mentioned, I believe it was the Bowling Green representative, mentioned, let's look at rebidding the project. It was decided, no, we're not going to rebid the project. And why didn't we rebid the project?
And that's the other, we haven't seen anything officially. Nobody's seen anything official. I mean, we haven't gotten anything from the school board that said this is what our numbers were. I'm like you. All I got was they wanted to come talk to us, and we're trying to set up a meeting to talk about it. But we're looking for the 6th.
What time?
I would say 6 o'clock. Well, I'll ask the board now. Are you trying to shoot me? I'll ask the board now, but it was, since we will be meeting with the school board after the election, it was my intention to invite the current Board of Supervisors, the current school board, and any new members that may be on either one of those. Is that okay?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, because I know there will be at least 2 new school board members just on redistricting and who's running. And we don't know what anything else will be, but I'd like to invite, and we'll have at least 2 new, right, because there'll be a new one and Mr. Popowitz is not running. So in that case, we need to make sure we involve everybody. So I'm going to ask you and Mrs. Hall, I know she'll get the end result, but pay attention to what happens next week so we'll know who to invite.
The question is for clarification. Are they able to participate in the meeting itself, or you're saying they're just attended to hear what's going on?
They can attend to hear what's going on.
Just like they do now.
And they would have the ability to say something, but if we're voting on something, that we wouldn't necessarily let them vote. Because
I didn't know if we were going to say they're going to be involved in the discussion, if it was going to be a public hearing, and they would then be considered in this discussion. I understand they can come in here, like Kenny Moore has tonight. He's coming here.
I guess I have to come, is it a work session or is it a board meeting?
It's a work session. It's an official meeting, whatever you call it.
But I mean, it's
not our board meeting. Theoretically, we wouldn't normally make action or create action, but if there's a time crunch, we may have to.
Okay.
So we as a sitting board will be there, but there will be a 6th seat from the Western Carolina District, whoever that is. They'll be part of the meeting, but they won't, by law, they can't vote because they haven't officially taken office. And the same will be true with the school board. Making them aware, I'm trying to extend the courtesy to them to make sure they understand everything that they're walking into, and they'd have a few weeks to say, I'm not sure I want to do this. So, all right. Capital projects update, you want to do that?
You have the capital projects update in your packet. We'll be happy to answer any questions. Don't have any report on that beyond what you have in your packet. Agenda calendar items. County offices will be closed on Friday, November the 11th in recognition of Veterans Day. Mr. Fulham has asked me to make you aware that the annual Veterans Day ceremony will be held the 11th at 11 a.m. on the courthouse lawn, and it's co-sponsored by the American Legion Post 221 and VFW Post 10295, and there's food after the ceremony on the lawn. Mr. Fulham wanted to make sure that the board members knew that they were invited to that. The governor's holiday schedule, the board approved earlier on the consent agenda. I did. I pulled the wool over your eyes. Added a half a day on Wednesday, November 23rd for Thanksgiving, and also Friday, December 23rd for Christmas. And then offices will be closed. We already had this, but on Monday, December 26th as well.
Mr. Pardon, since the board has been gracious over the years to give employees the extra time at state, the governor's looking at reducing. The county employees going to be willing to do that as well?
I guess we'll have to take the bad with the good, wouldn't we?
Only kidding.
All right. Gee whiz. What shall we do? Okay. I guess we should go. All right. County Administrator's report's done. Closing board. Oh, we've got a closed meeting. I knew life was too good. Mr. Underwood, closing board comments?
None at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Popowitz?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Wanted to recognize that Mr. Schiebel this past month spent some time with us at the George Washington Regional Commission meeting. He came in and did a presentation for us on our possible water, with our new water plan, and what that entail and how that affects the entire region, and also talked a little bit about our wastewater treatment plant in Dawn and how that has helped the county and how it could help other counties as well as far as the nutrient content and other things during with the Chesapeake Bay Act stuff. So just want to recognize Mr. Schiebel and thank him for coming up and taking his time to do that for us.
Thank you, Mr. Popowitz. Mr. Sealy, closing comments?
I have none, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Akers?
No, sir.
All right, I don't have any, other than to say good luck to all involved next Tuesday. Motion for closed meeting, Mr. Akers has.
Mr. Chairman, I move that this board convene in closed meeting pursuant to the acquisition of real estate exemption of section 2.2-3711.A.3 of the code to discuss the acquisition of utility easements in Caroline Pines.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Akers, seconded by Mr. Underwood. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. In about 5 or 10 minutes, we'll be in closed meeting.